So the first thing we're going to start with is the bottom head, and all we're going to do is just finger tighten the lugs. I use the method where you just sort of spin the key until it catches with your fist in the middle of the head, just sort of stretched a little bit. And I just go around the head in a star pattern until the key stops spinning from a little flick with my fingers. And we'll just go around and make sure we do it evenly. And as you can see, as I continue to do this, the wrinkles start to disappear until eventually the wrinkles are completely gone and I cannot just flick the key to move it. And that's when we know the lugs are at a good tension, when we can start making sure that the lugs are even and we can start pitch matching here. Alright, and now I'm just going to go around the drum with the drumstick and tap about an inch, maybe half an inch away from each lug, and just make sure that the head is nice and tight and even. And now we're just going to start bringing up the head evenly. I'm just going to slowly move around the drum, tuning the bottom head up till eventually I feel like it's at a good tension. I generally strive for a pretty tight bottom head, just about tabletop tight, where the bottom head doesn't really flex. The other thing to strive for is a ring from the bottom head. I go for a D5, some people go for a C sharp, it's just really a preference. The ring is just important for the drum to project, and if the drum isn't ringing, it's not going to project across the field. Alright, and I'm just going to continue bringing up the bottom head here until I feel like it's at a good sound and a good tension. So next up is the snare guts. So what we're going to do is switch the snare strainer off and then slide 2 pencils on each end of the snare guts here. And then we're just going to flick that snare strainer back on so that the snare guts are nice and tight and we can pluck them like guitar strings. And we're just going to go ahead and make sure that all these snare guts are at the same note. The note itself doesn't really matter, but we do want to make sure it's more of a high note, just so we know the snare guts are nice and tight. We're just going to use a screwdriver to slowly turn each screw until we hear that each snare gut is the same pitch here. And we're just going to go through all the snare guts here until they sound about the same, just so we get a nice even sound from the snare guts. And the next thing we're going to do is just switch off our snare strainer and slide those pencils out. And that way we can start adjusting the vertical adjustments to make sure that the snare guts are flush on both sides of the head. We want to make sure that they are touching the head, but they're not bent around the head, just so we don't choke off the snares at all. And then we're just going to turn the knob here, just loosen the snares so they're not really in contact with the bottom head, so we can adjust the top head. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean underneath the top head here, and then just go ahead and put the top rim on. We're going to do the same thing we did with the bottom head, where we push in the center of the head and just turn the key until the lug becomes about finger tight. These top lugs weren't as greased as they probably should have been, so I had to turn the lug a little bit more until it was really pressing against the rim. That just might be something you'll see with older drums. And we're just going to go around here and make sure that I get all the lugs nice and tuned. I'm not going in a star pattern just because the top head is a little bit of a tighter and a stronger material, so it doesn't really matter that much. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring up that top head evenly as well, and then we're going to go ahead and check the pitches. And now that I've got all the pitches even, we're just going to slowly bring up the top head, and we're just going to check each lug with the key as well, just to make sure they all feel about the same tension, just so we get an even tension around the top head as well. And then we're just going to start bringing up the top head. We're just going to bring it up to a tension that feels good in the hands, but also sounds good to the ears. I generally go for a medium to high sound on the top head. And here's the final results here. So this is what the bottom head sounds like. And here is what the top head sounds like. And then we're going to go ahead and slowly turn the tension knob until we start to hear a crisp sound at a very low piano light tap level here. And then we're going to play a little bit louder just to hear how it sounds, and maybe tighten them a little bit more just so it's not too wet. And then here is how the drum sounded while I was in my basement. Keep in mind that a marching snare is meant to sound good across a football field, so up close it might be very ringy and open, but as we get farther away it starts to sound a little better. Just a couple key notes here. We want to make sure, with especially the bottom head, that we're tuning it up nice and slow, and then we're giving it time to stretch. We don't want to end up ripping the head at all. Also just want to make sure that we're doing it nice and even. And that's how my drum sounds. That's how I tune my marching snares. Thanks for watching.